Hi, welcome to Student Tech Reviews. Today we are going to be reviewing the Samsung Chromebook Series 3 laptop. Now, I'm a little hesitant to even call this a laptop. You might call it a netbook based on its size, but it actually serves my purpose as a student. Now, the MacBook Pro 13-inch is a 4.5-pound computer. It might not seem very heavy, however, if you carry this all day in your backpack, you're going to feel it. The Chromebook weighs in at only 2.43 pounds. Now that actually makes a significant difference. A long time ago, I went to Europe and bought one of these little satchels. And I thought that I might carry around my laptop all day in this fancy satchel. However, I did not conceive how heavy a 4.5-pound laptop would be carrying around all day in the satchel. Come 2 years later, I buy a Chromebook, and it's so much easier carrying around this netbook-sized laptop. Now that's just one of the few advantages of having a Chromebook as a student. Your shoulders will not be so happy carrying around this behemoth. Now the reason that I'm currently using the Chromebook more than the MacBook Pro is because of boot time. Not just that, every time I start this computer up, there's almost some type of software that I have to update for a few minutes. And after 7 minutes of turning on the computer, updating all the software, I finally start to get to do work. With the Chromebook, you have the software updating automatically in the background, so you don't have to worry about that. Now let's look at boot times compared between these two laptops. I'm going to hit power now. One of the things that you might have to consider if you're living on campus is that almost every school now requires you to install some type of third-party firewall. So as we can see, the Chromebook is already launched. As I was saying, one of the problems with these firewalls is that you have to wait for the computer to boot up and then for the firewall prompt to come up, and then you have to type in the username and password just for your school's firewall. One of the nice things about owning a Chromebook is that these third-party softwares don't even install on a Chromebook, and you can bypass those requirements by your university. So, I'm at the University of California currently, and in a minute I'm going to have a pop-up request to insert my username and password for my school just to get on the internet. And so that's something you're going to have to consider. Still loading, still booting, while the Chromebook is already up and running. Now, some people might ask, well, if you're an engineer, aren't you going to need MATLAB to do your homework every day? And that's certainly true. However, every school that has MATLAB as a requirement software is almost always going to have a library that has computers with MATLAB installed. So if you look at it from that perspective, you could get away with using a Chromebook instead of a heavy-duty laptop. However, I suggest to use a Chromebook with a regular laptop. That might be the best scenario. One of the things that I like about this laptop is that it's incredibly light, and there's no fan in this thing. It's not going to make a ton of noise, and it's not going to burn your lap because there's virtually no heat generated by this laptop. It consumes very little power. It has about 6.5 hours of battery life. And that's actually a lot better than my MacBook Pro, which has a spinning hard drive and actually consumes energy, produces heat, makes your lap a little warmer. Now, one of the best distractions is Hulu. So why don't we try and see how quickly videos play on Hulu. If you see here,
It says all kinds of greetings. Hi, hello, hola. You tell me you've never heard Oscar say hi. But you're called.
As you can see, video playback is pretty excellent. If you're looking for like HD video for streaming anyways, you're not really going to get that with the Chromebook, but this device is not meant for HD viewing. I see it as a way to do homework with some minimal distractions. You don't really have the mail system like Outlook or webmail, or the mail application that comes with the MacBook Pro. So you're not going to have these pop-ups all the time saying you have mail, spam mail. Rather, you're going to have an environment where you're not distracted and you can do work and focus. One of the things that I don't like about this operating system is that there isn't a way to highlight or annotate your notes, your PDFs. So if I open up one of these journal articles that I have to read, you'll see that the highlights that I made in another operating system, like the Mac OS, all my highlights didn't transfer over. And that's a problem. You know, people have different ways of working. They'll sometimes highlight everything and then go back to it later and then write the report based off those highlights. If you're that kind of student, this might not be the best device for you. You'll have to consider that when you buy it. Another thing to consider is if you use Dropbox every day, you probably want to convert to Google Drive. The reason for that is if you want to work offline, Google Drive is built into this operating system to work offline. And Dropbox doesn't really have that functionality within the Chrome OS. So it's actually not a big transfer. Google Drive has 5 gigabytes of free space versus Dropbox, which has about 2 gigabytes. Depending on if you invite other people, you can actually get more space with Dropbox. But it wasn't really a big switch for me, having to go from Dropbox to Google Drive. If you're new to the cloud, one of the things that's really nice about these cloud-enabled devices is that you're never going to lose your work. It's saving practically every second. Now, I've known a lot of people where they've been working on a report for an hour or two, and they just didn't save their work. So unexpectedly, their devices will crash, and they'll practically cry because they just lost 2 hours of their lives. That will never happen when using the Chrome OS because it's saving every second. Another thing that you're going to have to consider is that you won't have Office. You can't install Office. You can't install OpenOffice with the Chrome OS. What you do have is Google Docs. So you would have to convert your Word documents to Google document, which is actually pretty easy. In summary, I would highly recommend this to any college or graduate student because it creates an environment where you can just focus on your work. You're not getting email pop-ups. You're able to do just about anything you could do on a MacBook Pro. It's extremely light. You can install an SD card if you really want to have extra storage, but you really don't need it. You get 100 gigabytes of free space for 2 years if you buy this device within the Google Drive. There's no heat generated. It's only $250. So, if I'm in a library and I have to use the restroom after studying for a few hours, I don't feel as bad leaving this device there as I would with a MacBook Pro. Or, since it's so light, I could just pick it up and take it with me. Compared to MacBook Pro, it's, this is a lot lighter. If this was stolen, if this was lost, if I dropped it, I wouldn't feel as bad. I could always buy 4 of these, or I could buy 1 of these. That's kind of a choice you might have to make. Or you could buy 1 of these and 1 of these and have this interact with this. Now, there's also another thing called remote desktop. You can access a lot of the programs that you need on your MacBook Pro from your Chromebook. So if you absolutely have to use MATLAB or have to use Excel, you could remotely access that if both devices are turned on through the internet. However, it is going to be quite laggy, and it's not really the best way to do things. So that's my review. Thank you.